Welcome to the Rose Garden, brother. Happy Thursday to you.
Thursday, so it's good to see you here again. How are you?
It's always a pleasant to see you, especially after you've been part of the sick and the shut-in tribe. And I see you've been, I see that sling over there. So you're not committing no misdemeanors today. You following the doctor's orders, huh?
Yeah, well, I just had to do a physical therapy session yesterday, like the first eval after the post op or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
shout out to Megs, that shit was like a circus. She was saying what's up to you too, by the way.
What's up, Meg?
So I went in there, you know, I was man, it was no parking. In the middle of the day, the point was at like 1 p.m. I couldn't find a spot. And the spot I found was so super small because I was driving the big pickup joint
Yeah.
and barely get in there. And as I'm getting ready to get out of there, the lady next to me trying to act like she felt like my car brushed up against her. It didn't, but she done held me up for a minute. And then Meg's calling me like, "Man, you about to miss your appointment." And I'm like, um, "I'm here. I'm in the parking. I'm in the parking lot right now. I'm dealing with this lady or whatnot." And then I go in there and I'm like, I left the keys in the truck and everything. So she went out there and grabbed the keys from me and stuff. Like I said, I appreciate her. That was like a fiasco. It was a circus yesterday. The lady told me in the thing, she was like, "Look, with your arm, you need to treat this joint like you're an old lady. You know, walk around like you're an old lady, so you don't fall. I was like, man, I ain't gonna fall." And she said, seriously, I want you to, not be lifting the arm and doing stuff. And she said, I just want you to try. I said, all right, I'll try. She said, well, if you're lifting up laundry, like folding laundry and putting it up on the shelf, that's not trying. I said, okay, I get you. I understand what you mean.
Wait a minute. Somebody thinks you in there being doing domestic work. Who is this person? Who is this person that is under some false pretense?
So it was funny. I guess she's trying to give me an example of what would be considered a flagrant foul. So I'm like, "Hey, I ain't gonna mess it up. So I'm gonna try to treat it serious." So she explained to me what's happening in the healing process. So it makes sense. So I was like, okay, I get it. You need me to.
Oh, so somebody else. Well, for all those who are new joining us today, I'm Sarita, and I'm joined by my exceptionally gifted brother, Xadian. And we come to the Rose Garden every week, except I missed part of the Rose Garden last week for our own personal therapy and to express ourselves and to live our authentic lives and just have our opportunity to grow and commune together. So we're happy that you've joined us. And we were talking about my brother and his the fact that, and maybe this is probably a bigger or broader kind of topic, that men don't listen to the recommendations of doctors because he had a pretty significant surgery where your hand, how long are you not going to be able to use your body part?
But the shoulder, I
Yeah.
guess it's not only for. Well, I mean, it sounded like a long time because she said, the sling get off in like 3 more weeks, so about 4 weeks total.
Hmm.
And then it's like 3 months of physical therapy. But they're
Hmm.
saying the first few months, they want it to be a gradual thing. Like first few months is not me lifting it up, like they doing pulling it around for mobility and stuff,
Hmm.
and for me to just take the time for it to like really set and heal. So I'm gonna do it because I ain't trying to go through it again. You know.
Did you tell them that the 2 days later you were lifting weights?
Yeah, but I wouldn't lift a weight on this same arm though.
It don't even matter. You know that song, the
But I
hip.
did tell him, I was like, yeah, I was working out on the the other side. She was like, okay, it's cool, but just make sure you're not going too crazy on the impact, like like jumping around, running and stuff like that. So it's not jostling the thing around. So I said, okay, I get
Well, I think you need supervision, so I'm gonna be your snitch,
it.
and I'm gonna tell all the ways you commit misdemeanors, to include not wearing your sling as prescribed, and then holding your cell phone in a way that you're not supposed to be holding it in a hand that's been damaged. So I'm gonna make sure you heal because we certainly don't want you to have to do it again, and we don't want you to be a statistic where you have to go back in and the stubborn male ego
Yeah, that would be
prevents you from growing.
yeah, that wouldn't be good. I agree with you on that. So I'm gonna
The,
be about it.
and the group chat even cared about your healing. They know today's the show, so they want to check in on you. And now I see they must have got to you with the bald headed brother, because now I see there's a hat on your head, so you're not even you're hiding your shine, huh?
Nah, it's for a functional purpose too. To the eye doctor, they talking about you gotta keep a hat on to keep the light out your eyes. You want to preserve your vision. You know what I mean? So I said, all right, I'm gonna listen. I'm
Okay, see,
being,
all this obedience.
I'm being obedient. He hears, he listens, and he obeys.
all, all this obedience. Are you trying to be a model citizen of what can happen? And
Well, I don't
you
know.
know,
It was too late for me to be a model citizen, but trying to be the best I can be.
well, as you keep growing, you might get the group chat inspired to like you more, and maybe other people out there in the world like you more, and your closet won't be so empty.
Well, I'm happy with the closet being empty. What we do, I don't do for the intent of a person liking me or not liking me. I just do it because it is what's in my heart.
You're just so generous. So,
Yeah.
so much going on right now in the world. The pleasant part of it is that we're all healthy, relatively healthy, and that our family is again growing. And your new nephew's potty by himself yesterday. He did number two. So,
Wow.
and why that's such a big deal is because he doesn't have full language. Um,
Mm.
but he's demonstrating to us, like like taking off the diaper and going to the potty. So we're so proud of him, and I'm enjoying seeing the developmental course that's happening, where uh these youngsters are so ready to be independent in the modeling that occurs. So we're so excited for our big boy who put potty on and number two by himself on the potty, and he didn't have the words yet. He just went in the bathroom and let it go.
But that's good. That's so you progressing. That's
Yeah,
what
he's
I'm talking
he's progressing. So, and then we had a good holiday season. So we have lots to be thankful for. And in this season, that's kind of my monthly kind of mantra is, I'm gonna be full of thankfulness and gratitude.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Always.
You should, because you over there committing misdemeanors, but you still over there healthy. So, brother, what's been happening? Where we going today? I don't have a big topic in mind.
I don't know. I think like we always want to just delve into the realness. I think everybody always, when you ask them how they doing, nobody really answers that honestly because if any given human being always gonna have like some hidden woes happening with them.
Mhm.
So at the same time, there's good things and things to be grateful for. There's always like stuff that are sour, that's happening too that people are dealing with, which I fully acknowledge. And again, that's a process too, right? But
Well, I'm glad that you look at you being so accountable. I mean, there's like a shift in you. I don't know what's happening, but I'm
ain't
in
no shift in me. I've always been accountable. That's
have mercy.
don't associate that feminine quality of not being accountable with me.
There we go. See, I'm trying to keep you out of in trouble with the group chat. Okay, so we're gonna say last time we were together, and I watched the show that you did with Mom last week. You were all embracing the idea that the human spirit is the problem, not male, not female. That the human spirit was the problem, and that we need to fix humanity. So, can we agree that I think there are certainly some female using your terms. This is not what I would call them, but from your qualities that you have described as female qualities, there are some males that certainly adopt a many female qualities.
Yeah, there are. I mean, like definitely, this is not a gender specific thing. That and not for nothing, I think we got to really err on the side that the human experience is going to be fraught with flaws, right? So I think everybody is condemnable and has deplorable traits as well as they have some good things about them, but you got to also acknowledge the bad too, right? And I
Right.
think people don't like to look at the bad too much
Mhm.
because like I guess to be able to move around in the world and all this stuff, they justify and rationalize the bad. But
Hmm.
sometimes I think you got to actually take a real honest accounting, you know, of something, because if it's something that you acknowledge yourself that's not too admirable,
Hmm.
why not, take the time to dive into it and make adjustments to it, so it doesn't have to be a problem to you anymore. You know
Well,
what I
there
mean?
is psychological science around why people don't want to dabble into the bad, because we have to live with ourselves, and so we know we have our own, our morals, our values are all kind of rooted in this culture. And so if we all walked around looking at our bad in context, then we couldn't live with ourselves. People would be jumping out the windows. And so what we do is we try to make excuses for that so we can live with ourselves, and then continue in our habits that may not be as good for for ourselves and others. But that's the reason why, like, this is rooted in real psychological science, that we cannot manage the bad, and often the shame, the emotion of shame and guilt that accompanies that is almost too overwhelming for people, so they create these defense mechanisms. And I think that's what we offer to stick around on the topic of bad behavior, because I think the group chat is going to be excited for us to at least talk about how we're talking about bad behavior. When you are confronted with your bad, what is the behavior that you go into? Because I don't know if you've been seeing our post as a company, but we've been using self-reflection as a tool for healing this month. And it's been powerful, a, for us to even do the research around what it involves, but b, how much it shapes the world. So I would say, when I'm having to deal with my bad qualities, I really have to be an active reflection. But what do you have to do?
No, I totally agree. I think it starts with active reflection, because you got to first be aware of it. You know what I mean? So, like, if you ain't aware of something, like, how can you resolve it? You know?
Right.
So, so is where it starts. And I think, dealing with it with honesty, right? Because there's got to be a certain kind of integrity in the process. And you ain't going to be able to, deal with something if you making up stories around it, or, you passing the buck of blame to somebody else and all this stuff. So,
Mhm.
for instance, let's just say, um, you know, all of us being here, we're not here by our own choice, because we all are born to parents who made choices prior to us, and their actions, or we're a consequence of their actions, right?
Right.
So I'm saying, in a very real sense, when you come into consciousness, when you become alive, wherever you are, the place where you're alive ain't got nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? At that point in time, it got nothing to do with you.
Okay.
So literally, when you come into consciousness, you could realize we're poor, and this is my parents' fault. You know, or this is a crazy, insane environment. This ain't my fault. This is somebody else's fault.
Right.
But now, uh, so that part, is true. Like, you really ain't got no control over that, whatever. But as your life unfolds and you do start being empowered with being able to make choices and decisions and stuff. So, like, let's just say, again, using that analogy, a kid grown into some extreme poverty might not have an opportunity to go to school and learn,
Right. Right.
right? So you can't really fault him if he don't know how to read, he don't know how to write, and all that stuff at a certain point.
Hmm.
But later on, if that is something he wants, and and he's not doing anything to pursue it or change it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Then that's his fault now.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So it's like, some point in time, you got to reclaim power, right? Your self power, but you got to do it on, honestly. You can't be pointing blame to other people and all this stuff. But
Well,
then, go ahead.
I think you bring up a good point. I think, though, that let's look at the relationships that we've had that have been problematic. And we can talk honestly about the dynamic we have in the sibling relationship.
Right, definitely.
And is in our sibling relationship, there have been times where I think it was, you know, very difficult for us to see how we contributed to a situation and circumstance, because our environment was so chaotic early on. And so I think that the measurement of growth for me is that once I did have autonomy, and I can tell you when that happened. Um, my autonomy happened the moment I went to college,
Mhm.
because it was like absolutely no option. Like, I wasn't planning on coming home. Like, my son came home and want me to pay all the bills, and
Right,
you
right.
know, like he could play, he could good time his money, and my money was still supposed to be on his, stuff after he got. But that was never ever my reality. Like,
Yeah.
I the moment I escaped Alcatraz,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was not coming back. And so everything I did within those choices was about me. And so I think a lot of times as siblings, where you all were in your development, you probably saw that as very selfish. That's
Well,
Serena picking her.
you're right. I mean, I think like understanding oneself and understanding others, right? Because I think again, like you said before, your mom and you was trying to say that I might see the world according to myself or men around me or whatever, which I do. I admit that I see it that way. But I do know, the different types of men too, the grimier types and, this other stuff. So I see that as well. But I guess the point I'm getting at is that, you got to have extreme awareness to be able to have empathy for others and understand another person's plight. Like, say, for instance, if I ain't never been hungry before, and somebody else is hungry and they go to steal some food because of this hunger,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna understand the impulse to do this because
Mm-hmm.
I ain't never had no hunger pains. But
Mm-hmm.
if I have been hungry, then I see somebody do it, I would have empathy for them because I know what that's like. You know what I mean? So I think as children, things we might have been inside of like some crisis, chaos, chaotic situations and stuff, traumatic situations and all this life altering things, but we didn't understand what the effect it was having on us. You know what I mean? It's just like somebody like right now, let's say we walking through the woods and we both got bit by snakes and we didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to feel the effects of the shit going on, and we kind of being like, man, I'm getting woozy, I'm getting dizzy, this thing happening to me, or whatever. But I don't know why it's happening to me. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And then you might be feeling, a different type of effect. And neither one of us knows why, but we are acting on it in a way. Maybe you panicking, maybe I'm doing this, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in this way, it creates like separation between people because
Yeah.
of the lack of understanding. And we all going through our own crisis and plight, and feeling like we dealing with this thing alone, and ain't nobody there for us and all that, which is also not entirely true, you know.
Right. Right. It's always somebody.
Yeah, but it feels like it, like
Yeah.
this thing is a crushing pressure that ain't nobody helping me with. But
Right.
I guess once we, live a little bit, we got these experiences and stuff. We start to understand each other more, especially when you're listening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you hear like, yeah, I wasn't fucking with you, you wasn't fucking with me, and this thing that, and you care about it. Like, I don't really want you to feel that way. So
Right.
what can I do to make amends and to address it? Just like I said, also was telling me, about his walk and
Mm-hmm.
with his own children, and that that he realized that there was some things that they was feeling, and it was hitting him on the chin, like like, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel the same way, like right now with my own situation with my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've sacrificed, did a lot for my child, did all this, and at this current moment, she ain't really grateful, appreciative of those sacrifices and those things I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel any like regrets towards it because I did
Right.
it in my heart, and I also don't 100%, like I'll put it into you in Oso's words. I hold out hope to where I could yield to uh, a good approach towards healing it. You know what I mean? If a
Mm-hmm.
person is serious about it.
Right.
But also, I gotta, stand on the square of making sure that I'm not abused and I'm respected and stuff like that, even with people who supposed to love you. Like I can't allow no child to disrespect me. You
Yes.
know, Yeah.
But
And
that's the thing. I think people have a fabricated idea
mhm,
of motherhood and fatherhood, right?
mhm,
Like I have, uh, we're middle aged, and I have all these counterparts around me that are trying to have kids,
mhm.
right? And I be asking myself, like, if like right now, I'm so glad I had my kids when I was 20, and and had that youthful energy, because having the grandkids now, like, I love them, but like I love them, right? But the best part about being a grandmother is I have functional kids that I can return to sender.
Right, right.
Like I don't know that I would want to have a full-time parenting role right now. And I certainly would not want to have a full-time parenting role right now where I made myself a single parent. But
Nah,
I have a lot of friends who are like, they're calling it womb crave. And these are professional women, like, who have some sense, you would think. But I think that there's a Hollywood view of what it's like to be a parent. And I'm like telling the truth. Like, look, it's more taking than you get, than you receive. And
yeah.
it's also an exercise of, like, you may use good words, sacrifice. Everything about parenting, especially when you have limited resource, or maybe even when you have resource, it's about sacrifice, because those children in infancy, all you're doing is pouring into them and meeting their needs and their demands. Then they turn into childhood, and then we're trying to help them grow. And then they want to fight for their autonomy. We still holding them back a little bit because we know the dangers of the world, and their brain doesn't help them do it. Then we got to meet adolescence, and that's like the worst freaking time in the world. And then they're young adults, and then they're over there just living their best life and saying it's on you. So
Right, right, right.
it's like it's a terrible time. And I'm like, I wish people would stop going around and saying, I love being a mother. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I can say this, like, I'm so glad that my first child came as a surprise, because if the older I got, I recognized, like, yo, this is a lot of work. And I was too dumb back then not to, hustle hard and make it happen. Now I have a lot of wisdom. And so I would be like, do I have the time, resource, and ability to give in a way that somebody who needs to be, because we're giving them life. We're modeling so much. And I think it's extremely selfish for people to believe that having a child is going to give you something. Is it, you do get things, like, don't get me wrong, I have joyous memories and all those things, and it was fun, and we've had good times, yes. But it was a challenge to who I was and to who they were.
Mhm.
And our relationship has been challenged at times. Nobody talks about the times where you and your children are going to bump heads. Nobody talks about the time where you really have to set real good boundaries and limits with your children, and not allow them to be blood sucking vampires that
Mhm.
they want to be, and disrespectful, and harmful, because we are human too. Like, it doesn't feel like it, because moms and dads look like superheroes, but we're human too. Nobody ever says that. And so we at home sitting there secretly, telling each other lies. And then when we get together, we're like, oh, it's so great. I'm so in love with it.
Mhm.
Mothers and fathers have cried themselves to sleep at night. Mothers and fathers have had to lose their sense of identity and worth and be embarrassed and shamed. Like, that's the truth about it. And we don't necessarily say the truth about it.
Nah, that's
So
true. I totally agree.
it's not this
It's one
sexy,
sided.
glamorous thing.
Yeah, when you being a parent, like, the truth be told, the intent should be a one-way thing. Like, you giving and you not really receiving nothing back, because
Right.
and you can't have the expectation of getting nothing back neither, because it's not a guarantee that that's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
And not for nothing, it shouldn't even be no expectation, because, like, whatever you're doing as a parent, it's like, once again, gotta be really sincerely, genuinely from your heart.
Absolutely.
And I think also, this is a human being, like, that's how people should be, living their life situation, right? Because all of it is personal integrity in my view, because like I said, when somebody say they're going to do something, they should do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If this is an obligation that you got to a child or whatever, that you produce or whatever,
Hmm.
the child is your responsibility in certain type of ways. Sometimes and always, really, their life is your responsibility.
Right.
But I
Right.
do see like some, like you said, to your point, sometimes you produce this life and you ain't prepared. Like you ain't financially in a good situation. The relationship with the other parent might not be good. It could be all kinds of weird things, right? And
Oh my God, let's sit with that for a second
mhm,
because I really was having this conversation with somebody recently.
mhm,
And the reason why we are having this conversation is this person
mhm,
um does not like the father of their child, right? But guess what? The
mhm,
child came out looking just like the father. And I mean, it's almost like so like it's in our face, right? Like
mhm,
I'm like, man, that boy looked like his daddy, and the daddy ain't worth a quarter, you know. Um,
mhm,
and so I always ask myself, and I have to say this part of the story,
mhm.
that person knew when they were selecting the person, it was not unknown who this person was by character. So I have to give so much ownership to them for the choice they made, right? So I always have this kind of inner dialogue in my own mind, like how can you stand to be around someone who's so reminiscent of something that you don't like? Because that lady is so cruel to the dad, but the kid mannerisms everything. And so I mean, it's not that I think the child deserves any negative treatment. I just ask myself, how do you do that if you
Well,
don't really like the partner?
to me, it's like this. It's again choosing yourself or the other, right?
Hmm.
Because if you were able to create a life with the person, but you don't care, so basically you laying down and letting this man come all up in your body and do all this stuff and whatnot. But later on, you will be like, you don't like this man character and all this stuff. And men do that too. Like, you could be around a woman, all the time, and you just really ready for the sexual gratification, but you really can't stand that woman for real, for real. Like,
Right.
it's just, when we gonna get this to this part, and then when you gonna leave after after this part?
Right, right. But
Yeah,
that's not see, that's not the conversation people are actually having, right?
nah.
They're not actually having that. They're not
But if
saying that reality.
you've created a child with somebody, now it's different because you got to be like, my whole thing is this, like, um for the other side responsible for creating my children, like I might have personal feelings about them that might not be complimentary, you know
Mhm, mhm.
for that mother and for the mother's family. I might feel all kinds of ways, but I feel like if I do anything to be aggressively attacking it, I'm also attacking my child because that
Right,
person's half part of my child too. You know what
right.
I mean? So it's like,
What great character.
yeah, but do you? And I ain't even trying to do this for no character award and shit. It's just like truth. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what if I did something to hurt them people or whatever, attack them people, do this shit? I'm actually doing that same thing to hurt
My child.
my child too. Because what
But
would
you
happen
also
if
should be thinking about that prior to, like,
what things happen? Yeah, yeah,
and then you can't go backwards in time and be talking all this negative stuff about the dudes or the women
yeah.
when those were your choices. And then the children come out and they're symbols of those choices. And then you want to be, I think a lot of people that I've seen is because they can't take their animus out on their kids, they take it out on the partner when they really want to take the animus out on their own choices. And again, it goes back to where we started in the beginning is like, we forgive ourselves very
Right.
easily,
Yeah.
because we
Right.
got to live with ourselves.
Right.
But
Right.
we don't forgive the person who's just also making the same mistake and probably didn't like you either when y'all were having sex. I thought about that NBA player who was like he had the babies and then he
Right.
uh,
Right.
was like, I'm giving $1 million and signing my name away so you can get out of my life. And that created a whole lot of controversy. Now, so the human part of me thought like, okay, that's limited accountability and all these other things. But from a functional perspective, you can understand why somebody would want to run away in that way.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree. You know what I mean? But also, like you said, you've already been a parent. You've already raised two grown children or whatnot. So and you being a parent is a lifelong.
Endeavor.
Yeah, it's a lifelong endeavor, and it's part of who you are. Another thing is like people always are, trying to act like one thing in their life doesn't define them, right?
Hmm.
And I think that the thing about that is it's not it's not the one thing doesn't define everything about you, but it does define you though. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's like, for instance, if you um, you kill somebody, right? Then yeah, you kill some. That's an attribute. That's something that happened to you. That's like you did this. That happened, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if you get a college degree, you earned that. That happened to you. You know what I'm saying? You get a black belt or something. Whatever. All these, but you're not just that ain't just the fullness of your story, but it's still something, right? And that something means something. It's like, well, what did you learn from that experience, or what
Mm-hmm.
did it do to you? Because like, let's just say a person who ain't never kill somebody or something, you kill somebody, that does something to you, alters you in some kind of a way. You know what I mean? Just like everything else does. Like you go through a college experience and
It changes
get
you.
a degree, you get a job, whatever that job was. Now you got that talent, that skill, the ins and outs of that thing, whereas you didn't know this thing before. So it definitely alters you. You know what I mean?
But from a human perspective, like those kinds of choices alter us in ways I don't think people want to talk about. And particularly when it comes to like people who have to serve time.
Yes.
And, that's it's a interesting topic too, because there are a lot of people who are serving time and incarcerated who are parents. And then when they get out, you know, the world is not as inviting, and in so many areas, but definitely in the parenting arena. There's so much judgment around the person having been in prison, and we attach that to how well they can parent, or how well we think they can parent, or what kind of relationship they should have with their children. And I think that is what needs to change, because you know many people go to jail. you know Not every person who goes to jail is a bad parent. you know you know what I mean?
Yeah, that like I said, that doesn't define um, that doesn't define other aspects of roles in your life.
Hmm.
But I would say that, going if you go to if you serve time, then you actually have been a active participant in societal rules, because that means you went through the due process. You got charged, accused, tried, convicted, even if you pled guilty, whatever. And then you got a sentence imposed on you that you fulfilled, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in doing this, then that means that you really are, being a good citizen in a sense, because if you're a total outlaw, you ain't going to court, you ain't going to be, you ain't going to be sentenced, you ain't going to do none of that shit, right?
Right, you going out in a blaze of glory.
Right. So if you get a sentence and serve that sentence, then I think that you should have a certain level of respect associated with you on that, right? And that coming back to society, an experience I've had, there was like pre-release courses, right, which I thought was really wonderful. And the pre-release courses, what they did was they basically talked about what it would be like for a person to re-enter in society again.
Hmm.
Certain things that you wouldn't even think
Think
of.
about,
Yeah,
like, share
like
that, because I'm learning that now because of people I'm working with. But I never knew, like think about this. There's a, there's like, you got to get a pass to get a passport. You need documents like a birth certificate or a photo ID, or
to
you
get
need stuff.
to get a job, when you do that I-9 form, you need like two forms of authentication stuff. So you
Right.
gotta get your birth certificate, social security card, ID.
I never thought of
Mind
that.
you,
Where
mind
does
you,
that
all
stuff
the
go?
all the stuff you got to do, like a lot of people don't think about and know, and who would know how to do it. But the good thing is, a lot of times there are some resources, like I said, like these pre-release resources, and then like the halfway house stuff, and all that. But the
Is
other,
that what happens there? Is that they're talking about that in the
yeah,
prison?
yeah, yeah, because I mean that's a necessary. You required to work, you all that, so you need to get these things fundamentally, but they're difficult. Like anytime you want to go get like a driver's license, that's not an easy thing, because you got to endure the MVA or DMV or whatever.
Right.
Then
And people don't talk about that endurance. Like that's really a feeling word. Like what it must feel like to have to go back and get a whole identification to prove your birth.
rebuild your whole life, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? With that stuff. And all three things, the birth certificate, ID, the social security stuff, those three basic fundamental things, they all cost money to get again. They all are in three different locations to obtain them.
Right.
So
And under this administration, it takes 20 years because
but it's an effort, it's a long effort.
it's an
But
effort.
another thing was, it was talking about people who had families or whatever that, you have changed. Obviously, like we ain't the same person we are from a month ago.
Right.
You have changed, but also the people, that you're returning to, they have changed. So if you had children, you
Mhm.
lucky enough to be the less than 1% a woman or wife that stayed by your side while you went through this. You might have a girl when you get out, probably not though, right?
Wait a minute. There's a pen pal system. They got pen
but,
pals.
but if you had a wife and kids before, the likelihood is a lot of things has changed, right?
Right. Right.
So maybe that's something that you ain't thinking about, right? And you're
Right.
thinking, I'm about to return to this situation where these people had, they got a lifestyle that
Right.
that
Right.
and I'm about to get reintroduced to their lifestyle, and I got to learn them all over again, just like they got to learn me.
Right. Right.
So all that's supposed to happen, you know what I mean? In my situation, I had my daughter or whatever, and the way we was living at the time when I went away was, the mother was living, with me in my house or whatever.
In your house, you want to make sure everybody knows what's yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying we was all under one roof.
Well, you were married.
No, I wasn't really married though at the time when that happened, because I only got married like a couple days beforehand. So it wasn't even really. I don't even count that.
God, no, no black. Oh, why?
Yeah, you count that. Right? So I'll say, but when I got back, like everything was different.
Yeah.
So I wasn't living we wasn't living together no more. We wasn't gonna be together and all this stuff. And I had to relearn my daughter too, because I had been gone for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
What does that feel like? Because
I told myself, I ain't gonna force nothing. You know what I mean? So I didn't want it to be a forced thing. And one of the things that I had to endure was she would spend a day with me, and when she would be with me during the day, we have a ball. Of course, you want, as a parent at that time, she was really young. She wasn't even in like kindergarten yet, but you want her to, have fun. So
right.
we
Right.
had fun. So we doing fun things. But when it got to be nighttime, she would be like, "Okay, ready to go with my mom." That would make me. That would break my heart for a
Mhm.
number of reasons. But it was like a reflection of my failure, as a father, first of all, because it was like that never happened before that incident occurred. Like, she could be with me without her mom, no
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
But now, what I'm saying, so I'm not feeling like home to her anymore.
So
You know,
how'd you respond?
I would let her go back at that time,
Mhm.
because, like I said, I told myself beforehand, like I ain't gonna force this. You know what I mean?
So what did you do to kind of soothe yourself? Because that's a part of the accountability is that you got
I
to
had to
calm
be real
yourself.
with myself. I couldn't soothe myself on that, because I already knew that my actions and choices had created this outcome,
Mhm.
and now I gotta deal with it, and I gotta be the one to fix it because I broke it. You
Mhm.
know, so
What
I
was your relationship like with the mom?
terrible. You know what I mean? Horrible. I didn't want nothing to do with her. I didn't want no association or whatever. And I remember I would be taking her back. Her mom be tripping too, because she'd be out partying or whatever. You know, so it's time. She thinking like, damn, I thought she gonna be with you. You know what I'm saying? So now she want to come back. Like, that's interrupting my party, but she had to do
Right. Right.
it. And so anyway, this kept happening. It wouldn't. And then one day I'm talking to this little girl, like we talking. And I said, look, girl, you know, wherever I'm at, you have a home here too. Like this is your home. Wherever I am, you always gonna have a home. I'm always gonna prepare a space for you. So this is your home. And she's looking at me like, like an adult and like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go with my mom. I mean, like fuck what you saying. I'm gonna go with my mom.
Man, that's like you small. And this, and you know what, for context, this is like a 4 or 5 year old. You know what I mean? This isn't like a teenager. This is a 4 or 5 year old that's telling you, like, who are you?
And I'm like, I'm kind of tired, yo. This like we've been had a full fun day and stuff. You talking about you want to go with your mom? I gotta go drive. I'm tired. Can you drive? She's like, yeah, I can drive. So I said, okay. So I call her mom, and then her mom is fed up too. Like, damn, she want to come again? Well, look, I could just come over there and put her to sleep. I'm like, nah, absolutely not.
You weren't trying to be inviting to your home.
You ain't trying to open no door up like that, whatever. No, you know what I mean?
Now that you've had some time to reflect, would you have done that differently?
Nah, I think it worked out perfectly.
Wow. Wait a minute, you didn't reflect. A reflection is a moment of
that worked out perfect because what happened next was in us getting ready and argue about that situation. The little girl fell asleep. And when she fell asleep, I was like, okay, never mind, bye. Cover her, leave her there. And she woke up in the morning. She's like, oh, literally like this, like, oh. And after that, we ain't never had no problem. So that fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
You know mm-hmm. But it took time.
Try it on and do it.
Yeah, it took time. It took patience. It took time. Again, sacrifice, like my own ego and pride, my own emotions, all that. Yeah, it took time. You know what I mean?
And that's the one thing I think, again, we're not having these conversations. So, when you're on these stupid blogs on the Google, there's no handbook, right? You have to adjust to your children, but you also have to put yourself aside. And I think too many parents prioritize their needs over their children. 100%. And when you do that, then you are not effectively parenting, because parenting is not something that we can impose on our children. It's an exchange. It's a process. And I think, again, it's not a sexy process. Putting your ego aside means you're going to have to deal with very strong emotions. You by yourself.
Well, that's
pass that off to your kids and be like, well, I'm your dad. And you by yourself deal with your guilt, your shame, all of that.
Well, it's funny because like you want to label yourself, like something, good parent, bad parent, all that. Me personally, people, I do identify with, one of the roles I identify that's important with me is being a father, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I can't label myself a good or bad father. I can't label myself that because there's some goods about me and there's some bads about me. You know what I mean? So I would say, in terms of me being able to provide for, create a life or give them privilege, protect them and all that stuff, I'm good at that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like things like, me creating an environment where, it's a family thing where they see a mother and father that love each other and partner and do so. I haven't been good at that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think also in terms of like, developing them, like seeing a trait in them that might be good. Because I think sometimes with children, when they're developing, they do need our guidance. We see something in them, like you could be a fighter, you could be an artist, you could be a writer, whatever. I feel like doing those little implants of inception of thought to give them, I guess, belief that they could do something. Mm-hmm. I probably haven't been as good as that in that. You know
right,
what I mean?
Right.
But
wouldn't you say that that's what, I feel like the creator made this, like we can't have children by ourselves.
Right.
We have the requirement is there is a man and a woman that come together to have it. And I think that, I can say from my situation, I haven't done those things either for different reasons, right? And I'm the mother in the story, but I have a partner that has done those things. And
yes,
that's the benefit is like, I wasn't a single mom. And And my partner, even if I were, I think if we were separated, the value placed on parenting, because we do that well, like
Right,
me and my husband, we parent well.
right.
We both have strengths and weaknesses. And in an intact home, we don't do things the same way. That's why I hate, all these parents who like, they can't go to dad's house because dad doesn't tuck them. Listen, I don't even tuck my kids in the way dad tucks them.
No, that's
all that stuff the same.
All that stuff is bullshit. Like, reasons because they using the kid, situations, the kids as a tool, as a weapon against each other and shit. But y'all family good, you and your husband, y'all family good. But I'm saying, if you a really accountable person, which I really respect that about your husband, I find him to be a highly accountable dude. You know what I mean? But I could say, like say a woman who breaks her family off. You know what I mean? So she got a situation with like an intact family at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
She decide to sleep with another dude, get caught, all this stuff, and that breaks the family up. She can't say she's a good mother. You know what I'm saying? Because with her actions wasn't thinking about her kids at that time. You know what I'm saying? Also, as a father, you know what I'm saying? If I'm doing that same thing, that I could potentially put my family, at risk. I'm not being a good father when I do that and I'm making those choices. Mm-hmm. So that's a blemish in my father record on my father.
Right. And kids are inventory. There's a whole
they're gonna take them, but even if they don't, I'm holding myself accountable on it. Like even like my daughter, we and her, we supposed to have a pact of being honest with each other.
Right.
And I upheld it. You know what I'm saying? Mostly. Yeah, sometimes I did lie to her in times when I thought it might benefit her. You know what I'm saying? Like she would ask me.
We're gonna have to unpack that later because I never understand what that means.
Well, this is what it means. Like, say for instance, when she asked me a question like, do you love my mom or did you love my mom? So and the truth is I didn't and I don't, right? But I didn't think that it would be in her best benefit to hear that answer like that. So when she said,
so wait a minute, why is that the truth? Because love, you could have and I know you could have said that differently.
But the truth, so she's asking me this way, and I thought it was strange when she asked me, "Did you love my mom?" And I said, Now that's a landmine question. My first instinct was to answer it truthfully. And say, "Hell no, love your mom. Don't love your mom. Didn't love your mom. Hell no." I wanted to say that. But then I thought,
what does that say about you when you can actually
if I told her what I really felt, that's the truth, regardless of what it say, it's the truth. But then I said, but why is that important to her? Because the way she asked me, I was like, it must mean something to her that I love her mom. Okay. So I said, yeah, I love her. Just left it at that. I loved your mom, love her, whatever. Because I didn't want her to think that she was created in an unloving situation, which is what I thought she was getting at. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Was I like a mistake, or, like basically, how did I come about? Did I come about because you love my mom? Did you want to like create a family with her? Like, was this a planned thing or something? I don't know.
Well, okay, let me ask you this, just to question a little more and to get you to ponder. Do you think if you had said that we weren't thinking about being parents when we were together, that could have set up a different context to remove her from the equation?
I think children are coming from a selfish-minded perspective. And that, you know what I'm saying? Because they selfish when they at this stage of the game in life until they get to where we at. Probably where we start to become less selfish now. But
I think they can handle it if it wasn't about them. Like, I think
it's always about them when they talking about, like right now, right? When she asked me about her and her mom, it's about her, it ain't about me.
Well, I think in some sense it's about, I think kids can separate themselves because see, they're so selfish. I do think they're also trying to take care of their parent.
Well,
that's what I see is that they're trying to nurture the weaker. So there's a
they're trying to protect, nurture all that
weaker person. And so that's who they're nurturing, not necessarily themselves, because then what they could do is that gives them like just from a framing work, like think about this. If you said when we were together, we weren't thinking about being parents.
Well,
And
then you know what they'll do later on is like, well, I was a mistake. Nobody wanted me. You know, like they associate these things.
look, Jalen was a mistake, right? But I definitely wanted him,
He was a
right? So
surprise. He wasn't a mistake. He was a surprise.
listen,
Yeah.
however the hell you want to say it, I didn't on that day, on that night, we weren't like, let's get it on, let's have a baby. Now, Sinai was different. Sinai was planned.
Right.
So, like, I was intentionally trying to get pregnant.
Right.
And I can say, like,
but see, kids don't want to. Kids don't. Nobody wants to hear that about themselves. That like I was produced in a situation that wasn't.
Boy, we are 11 months apart. Do you think either of our parents were like, well, yo, let's have these brats back to back?
Do you think that we are the paragon of ways of things going? See, that's why I say like I lied to her for her benefit on that, because I felt like, and I saw it in her face that it satisfied her, like, okay, that's cool. Like, you love my mom.
Again, for your own ego, it's satisfied because then you felt like she
satisfied her. That's what, because
I don't know that
my ego would have been more fulfilled by me being like, hell no, I ain't like you're right. Yeah, that's mom.
You still taking strays for the relationship, the demise of the relationship. So
no, I'm saying I didn't. It's the reality truth. I didn't have this feeling for her. And I would have it would have fulfilled me more to be able to be more straight up with her, right? On it, to be like, look, this really which we later did. The situation got real between us. I really did just give it to her like, this is the raw truth for real. But I've been holding on for a long time. But at that time, I was thinking like, it's probably better for her to think this way. Because
I think that not creating fantasies for our kids are unhelpful. I understand the reason why you did it, but I have never ever Hollywooded the fact that yeah, buddy, I was 20 and I wanted to be your mom. That was not the deal. Like, I was not running down the street. Now, was I enjoying the act of what? Yeah, I was having a great.
Let me give you an example of what I mean on this shit, or why I said it though. Like, let's say we're in the house and the house burning down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you see this shit and you're like, oh my God, it's on fire, you need to get the fuck out, I even die. You got little kids, then they will like, it's gonna be everybody gonna go chaotic, crazy, all this. But what you want to do is keep people calm and rational, like, we gonna survive, be calm, do what I say, stop, drop, and roll, you catch on fire, do this or whatever, jump, do this. You gotta make it, not as severe and extreme as this really was really happening. You know what I'm saying? Because you want them to be
ready.
Ready and feeling more calm about it. So like sometimes in a situation that's really dire, you're gonna lie to a person, like, like this thing for your better benefit, which I think is good. Like, even right now, if I go to the doctor and my situation is bleak, I want them motherfuckers to give me a little bit of hope. Because I think the worst thing you could ever do to a person is take their hope away. But I do value honesty though. So like, don't get me wrong.
Emotions are a little bit more nuanced, and the idea, because the concept of love is a feeling, and what you can say is, so without have lied about that, you could have contextualized where you all were in a relationship. I love when like, let's take teenage mothers, and it's kind of weird to be like, did you love my dad? Well, I was 16 or whatever, and I loved what the idea of whatever your dad. But then, as like, if somebody asked me, did I love my boyfriend at 16? I'd be like, no, not really. Right?
Well, I like for you to throw that theory on my children, because I mean, they will tell you hours and hours of dialogue and shit like that. Like, she asked you a straight question. If she asks you a straight up question, which this question is a yes or no, and they too smart for their own good. It's a yes or no question, not a.
It's not.
The context of, like, if you did her like that, and I've done her like that before, she'd tell you. And after hours and hours,
You know what? That's the asshole in your kids. And this goes back to when I'm saying like kids are assholes and we need to be honest about it. And we need to tell the rest of the world who's over there saying, I need to have more of these assholes because I have womb It's ridiculousness. Like are harmful sometimes to us as parents. But the dialogue, again, is what teaches these little monsters how to be discerning humans. And that's the problem. We got a whole generation of people who can't tolerate thinking, who can't tolerate challenging perspectives, who can't tolerate anything because parents have been pouring into them so that they don't get disappointed or upset. The reality is, many children come into the world not planned.
100%.
I didn't come in, but that doesn't mean I did not want you. I think that's a different thing because
100%.
not planning you and wanting you are two different things. So I didn't go into motherhood. That thing, motherhood kicked me right in the door. Bop! I got kicked into it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do this.
So I'm wondering if what's more important is like, I really believe the truth is the most important thing out of anything, right?
I agree. So stop lying to her. Say, I love your mom. You hated that girl.
So, but from now on, like if I could snap back, you know, and hit the rewind button and go back in time, and you know what I am now, I'm gonna be as simplistically truthful as Forrest Gump is. You know what I'm saying? If somebody asked me that now, I'd be like, no, I didn't. This thing happened. Whatever. Yes, I did this. Whatever. I'll be straight on it because I feel like
answer the question.
Yeah, all that stuff, and then you know, let's deal with your feelings after it. You know, like the reality. Yeah, no, I didn't. Does it make you feel a funny type of way? You know,
yeah. Does that hurt? Yeah.
Get you some counseling, get your self-esteem, and what do you call that? Security, sense of self up or whatever. I'll do that, but I ain't lying to nobody no more.
Well, I'm glad because I think that's a valuable lesson. And I also think we don't need to lie to each other because that's another thing is like society has like it has taken me this long to be able to say out loud, like, yo, parenting was hard, unforgiving, not sexy, you know, like, you know, let me tell you, I have never felt harder, like not even for stuff that has impacted me more than stuff that has impacted my children. So like I wouldn't do this 6 other times. You know what I'm saying? Like I got the 2 and I can only manage the 2. Now, does that mean that like we shouldn't be parents? No, but I do think that people need to go into parenting with a real sense of reality. And what I am seeing is a very filtered unrealistic reality when people go into parenting and then they react to the reality of it in such a terrible way. And then they look around and be like, why didn't everybody tell you that parenting is hard? I'm like, because you don't really want to hear that. You're only being affirmed by the people that are coming in saying, it's so wonderful. I love being a mom and all I'm gonna be mom. Look, I looked at all the soccer moms that stayed at home, right? Because I didn't stay at home. And my dad, my husband really was the soccer dad because I worked really long hours and I was, you know, getting boarded and all this other stuff. But all the soccer moms never looked good. Their hair was undone. Their shit was in a bun.
There's a rare few. There's
rare few. But the moms that worked came blinging, you know, they look good. And you know, that was what I paid attention to. Like, so this full-time mothering mess is hard and, you know, you need help. And the reality is that people ain't saying it and you need a village and you need a whole network. Like we didn't do this by ourselves. We did it with a big network. Somebody sacrificed. My husband was the one who sacrificed at the time. You know, he didn't get to go back to grad school until he was in his 40s. You know what I mean? Because he spent that whole time while I was being me and becoming who I became, being, you know, the parent part, like the nurturer. So it's funny because people have this stereotype like, yeah, moms are the nurturer. Like I wasn't. I wasn't the nurturer.
I mean, that's again accountable, which I salute you for. But you know, it's the thing about this whole thing is, what does family really mean, right?
Yeah.
So to me, when you it's holding the best interests of each other in heart at all times, right?
Yeah.
And really wanting the best, from and for each other, right? And knowing that we got to sacrifice sometimes for it. Sometimes somebody you got to shrink a little bit for somebody else to be greater. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes, when you great, you gotta, recognize and still be humble, and still, don't get too much of a big head and stuff. Sometimes it's be having the willingness to heal these wounds,
Yeah.
that come between, whether you are the person that caused it or not,
Right. Right.
be willing to yield to the other person out of love, and
Right.
then if the thing can't be healed, that you don't really be up against another person. You know what I mean? Like right now, if for whatever person that I actually really love that we ain't cool right now, I ain't never gonna be doing anything antagonistic against them though to hurt them
Right.
in any kind of way. So nobody could ever come to me and be like, hey, we got a plan to stab this person in the back or do this and we gonna hurt them. And I would never be with that,
Right. Right.
because I still really got real love for them. And I'm still always holding out that light post of hope that the situation could be repaired. And all it
Right.
really would take is a genuine, sincere, humble heart.
Right.
And a
But
person.
repair is an action. And so, but that doesn't mean that we can't still be honest about all the realities. And family is, there's so many complexities in families. And we need a community to have a family. And I think people again don't want to talk about that. Like it doesn't, our successes and failures ride with how great our community is. Brother, I thank you for sharing so openly today. And boy, does our time go really fast.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it was a necessary kind of conversation for so many people.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
remember, if you recall, when we were raising our little young ones when they were little, we used to call them baby Talibanis. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, little
You know,
terrorists, like domestic
we used to call them terrorists. We like, yeah, those ones are terrorists. That's right. Yeah, we went broader, bolder than that. These ones are terrorists. And so, I'm glad we survived. We came out on the other side, but there was a reason why we were speaking such strong language in the time where we had them little babies.
I know,
So
I know.
I'm appreciative of your support. And listen, I got some messages from the group chat. Look, did you ever get your invitation in the mail?
For who?
For,
Nope.
oh, you know.
I ain't never get that invitation. You already know. I wasn't thought of to be invited on that list, but it's cool though. It ain't no love lost. That's one thing again. When you give love, whether you get it back, it's not necessary. That's why I always be telling my kids. It's like the one property that I can see a real sincere love is
Hmm.
a requirement for it to be reciprocated. You
Yeah,
know, I
yeah,
love you. You don't got to love me back.
I agree.
There ain't no love lost. Like, hey, whether I'm invited, ain't invited, it's all good.
It's good. It's good with me. Look, I get to save my gas.
Yeah,
But brother, I hope you're not putting me out the Fokker circle. And I just want to. So look, so one of what the person that didn't send you invitation in mail is giving you some love. She's listening today, and she says she's loving the show today. You still need to send your memo. Let her know you didn't get your invitation.
much love to her, for real.
And Meg and Labs was on in YouTube, and for everybody else who joined us live, we appreciate you. I don't have a game today, and I got a meeting like coming up in like 5 minutes, so I can't hang out long. But
Mhm.
I appreciate everything, brother. You got any final words?
Nah, just sending out love to everybody. Happy holidays. I think we in December now, and
We are way in December, so
rounding out the rest of this year. So I hope that everybody's getting in a last minute year end close out, activities. Like I said, wish everybody the fullness of happiness and joy in their heart. And
absolutely. And let your doctor know he can get you gonna go ahead and put me on your list so I can be the snitch and let him know what you're really doing. You cannot count on Xavier's word because he was over there lifting weights the week of surgery.
I was
I'm telling,
on the one side.
I'm telling everybody. So
I was being careful though.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad that you're on the mend, and I love you, brother. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too, sister. You
All
have a
right, bye
good
for
day.
now.
All right, bye for now.